my friend. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 54th episode of the Serbian Corner. It is an NBA Champions Denver Nuggets podcast hosted by a Serbian guy trying to speak English with guests from all around the globe. My name is Miroslav, currently dieting and trying to get off that nervously added weight during the playoffs. And you can find me on Twitter at MiroslavCUK, where I mostly post basketball-related dad jokes and also coward shame the MVP of the NBA, Mr. Joel Embiid. The NBA draft happened. The NBA champions, Denver Nuggets, had, thanks to some aggressive Calvin Booth moves, 3 picks, all in the 29 to 37 range, and they used all of them. They didn't draft Victor Wembanyama, he was gone a few picks earlier, but they did draft some interesting guys. We'll spend some time on them. I have a draft specialist on the show for that today, but we're also going to spend some time on the Nuggets depth chart coming into free agency. We have seen a lot of moving parts already. Brad Beal to Phoenix, Chris Paul to the Warriors, Zinger to the Celtics, Smart to the Grizzlies, Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole on the Wizards, and Davis Bertans on the Thunder. Like Dallas actually tanked their season just so they could get the number 10 pick to use to salary dump my Latvian brother Davis. Amazing. It's so fun to watch all of those 29 non-champion teams trying to pivot somehow and get in the Nuggets one-team tier. It's adorable. It is time to bring in my first guest, a great Nuggets Twitter follow, my fellow knower of useless information. From Lakewood, Colorado, it's Steven Reinert. Steve, did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah, you nailed it, man.
So for the Clippers fans out there, can you tell them how does it feel to be an NBA champion fan?
Oh man, it feels good. Feels good. Very relieving, really. After all those years of coming up short, it's finally good to be on top of the mountain.
You've been closely with the team for the last 10 years. Would you call this journey like a linearly growing path for the team, or was it like a really strong push up at some point that you realized you were witnessing?
I think it was pretty linear, really. I mean, once you got rid of the Brian Shaw debacle, it started to really grow. And I think it just kind of took that next step each and every year. Every player took that next step. And yeah, it's just kind of very linear.
I forgot to ask you, is this your podcasting debut or did somebody else pop your podcasting cherry before?
Oh, this is my third one, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Not a lot of debutants today then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now one of my favorite Nuggets podcast hosts out there, the host of the Four Corners podcast, the best bowler among the Nuggets fans and the biggest Nuggets fan among all bowlers, an expert dog person, and a stretch 5 in today's basketball. It's Ray Hackshaw. Welcome back, Ray.
Hey, glad to be here. I'm so excited. I feel like maybe a week ago, I looked at just starting over and I thought, wow, it's so soon. But, after the draft, after watching some film, I'm excited to get back into it.
But it's time for you to get on your hobbies more, I guess. When does the bowling season start and when does it end? Is it
Oh, it's
on
actually
now?
fall. It'll be August. So I've been doing things, got some archery in the other day. Yeah, do some cycling. Just trying to really want to explore Colorado as a whole. I've been here a couple years now. So I really like Denver, but really want to explore the whole of the state. I think this summer is what I'm focused on.
That's really nice. Do you guys have any maybe summer league plans in a couple of weeks? Anything to announce?
No confirmation. I may be stopping by, seeing some games. We'll see though.
Steve, have you thought about that?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna go. I'll watch from home.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. I mentioned we are going to have a draft specialist with us today. He is my designated draft guy. He is a contributor for the Crown Hoops, but most importantly, a Denver Nuggets super fan. Calling from East Coast, but with no cost bias, making his Serbian corner debut, it's City Fazio. Welcome, City.
Miroslav, thanks for me on. Great to be on with you guys. Yeah, draft just happened. Really excited with the outcome. World champions now, so glad to be transitioning to the offseason.
So tell me, and this might sound like a random question, but who is the best guy that wasn't drafted a couple of days ago, but will eventually end up on the Lakers and have more All-Star votes next season than Aaron Gordon?
Man, that's a tough one. I'm probably going to say Terquavion Smith. He actually signed with the Sixers, point guard at NC State. Name to watch in the future.
A name to cherish for sure. That name is awesome.
It is a cool name. It is a cool name for sure.
Very cool. Okay, guys, it's time to get to the business. So let's start with the Nuggets draft. Our NBA champions, did I mention that the Nuggets are NBA champions yet? They had their first pick at number 29. I was hoping for the UCLA NCAA champion, Jaime Jaquez. Did I say it right? Jaime Jaquez?
Right on the money.
Yeah. But he went to the Heat with the 18th pick. By the way, F that, a finals team getting a pick in the teens. Come on now. I also hope for Duke Dariq Whitehead, but he went 22nd to the Nets. But in hindsight, I'm really glad we didn't pick him because, he's probably not going to play next year. Instead, we got Julian Strawther, a 6'6" junior guard from Gonzaga, a 15-6 guy last season on 41% from the arc. He has a pretty weird shot. He holds the ball pretty low just before the shot, but his shot is lightning quick. Still, my first takeaway about him, elite last name, Strawther. I love it. I really love it. But since our audience probably wants better insight than that, City, give me your 5 cents about Julian Strawther.
Yeah, actually, Julian Strawther is a guy I've been on, for about 2 years now. He decided to come back last year. He tested the waters for the draft as well, but I don't think he got the promise he'd go in the first round. So came back, improved this game. Really dynamic shooter, 41% from three on a lot of attempts. I think about 4 attempts a game, which is pretty high volume. A guy who played off of Drew Timme at Gonzaga. I don't know if you guys are familiar. He kind of mirrors Jokic in a way where he's really heavily dominant in the post. Draws a lot of attention in that way. So I think, Calvin Booth kind of saw that as saying, we need shooters surrounding Jokic, maybe off the bench too, because the bench kind of had a struggle shooting. So I think Strawther's going to be a really great addition in that aspect where you could slot him in between Christian Brown and hopefully Bruce Brown as well, but you could play him in lineups next to Aaron Gordon too. And I think MPJ and Strawther on the wings is going to be a really, really dynamic wing duo as far as shooters. So I'm really high on the pick. I think it was great value at 29.
Ray, do you have any first thoughts?
I'm a big fan of a lot of the things that he does, just in how thoughtful he is in the way that he approaches spacing the floor. Like he's always making these like little micro adjustments about where he's standing and getting into like open passing lanes, and I think that's going to be really valuable for him. Can I give a small drawback?
Sure.
Maybe I think he might take a year of maybe working with an NBA program in terms of conditioning things, but I think his foot speed could be a little bit better. He is really long. I feel like he could apply. There's a lot of, I think, meat on the bone for him to apply himself and his length on the defensive end in terms of like keeping his hands active and things like that. But I definitely think he can contribute, definitely around Jokic and definitely around the much needed sort of offensive punch that the bench can provide.
Steve, did you see something interesting about him on the film?
I haven't watched too much film. I know his defense is needs a little bit of work, but I think our bench is so stout defensively already with like Christian Brown and stuff that I think it's going to be nice to have that offensive firepower to go with it now.
Yeah, I was super glad to hear that we didn't get any one and done guys, because this team is already so experienced and has such high quality. They don't need any, and they don't need a lot of projects. I think Peyton Watson can still be viewed as a kind of a project. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll be awesome from the gate. But having a guy who is such a dynamic scorer on the bench can be really, really fun. And since it's Gonzaga City, if I'm not wrong, it's one of the best programs in the NCAA. Should we feel confident about his basketball knowledge after 3 years of that program?
I think for sure. Yeah, Gonzaga, like you mentioned, is one of the best programs in all of college basketball. A team that's routinely in the tournament, one of the top seeds. And I think what I really liked about Calvin Booth over his past 2 drafts, he's really targeted experience to go with, the core of what the Nuggets have in Jokic, Murray, Gordon, MPJ as well. I just think that's kind of like the recipe, for how to have success. And we saw Christian Braun last year, a guy who, was a junior coming out of Kansas, won a national championship, and he contributed to a finals team. He was the 7th or 8th guy, and he really, really played well in the finals. So I think they can kind of say maybe Strawther could do the same thing, maybe not to that extent. But if you need him to play, I think he can, where he's not going to sink you if he's out there. You know what I mean? Compared to years past where you saw, like the Bol Bols or like the RJ Hamptons, those guys needed more development and more seasoning. And where the Nuggets were in their kind of ascent as a franchise, that really kind of didn't make that much sense. So I see, Calvin has a vision as far as what he wants. And I think, he was proven right last year with the Christian Braun pick. So I think there's optimism with the Strawther pick and then the 2 second-round guys as well.
Steve mentioned, and I think he was right, that the biggest concern here might be his defense. But which part of it? Is it the individual or team defense that we might, look into more coming, into the new season?
Yeah, I think for me, I think defensively, I think what he's good at is he's a really good rebounder for a wing. 7 rebounds for a wing. I think, like Christian Braun last year, same thing at Kansas. He was a really good rebounder, and that's what you need on the wing. Like all the Nuggets wings and guards are really good rebounders. So to add to that core, I think is really good. But yeah, Strawther on the perimeter is a little bit. He's not the fastest guy moving laterally, so I think that's where the issues come. But like I said, he's got really, really, he's got a tall base, so he's 6'7". About a 6'9", 6'10" wingspan. So he's got length on the perimeter as well. So I think he could guard, 2s and 3s. Maybe 3s are a little bit too physical for him. But I do like the fact that he's got a nice baseline. But, I think working with the Nuggets strength and conditioning coaches and getting a little more reps out there, I think he's going to improve. But just to start, I think he's got a nice baseline offensively and then room to grow on the defensive end.
Ray, do you have any thoughts on his defense?
Yeah, actually, if there's one thing I do like a lot, it's that in the same way that offensively, he's very thoughtful about his positioning and just where he is on the court. I think he does the same thing defensively, that maybe he's not always the fastest guy, but he's always really thoughtful about being 1 pass away, 2 passes away, and kind of varying his distance to his defender based on that. So I think he has the IQ to execute a game plan, and if you want to sort of work out a way to get him to being a capable defender, I think he can think the game well enough to really follow that through.
Okay, it is time for our first break. Don't go anywhere. All right, it is time for our second rounders. And we will start with my favorite pick based on my full 90 minutes prep time on these picks after we saw them being picked by the Nuggets. So at 32, Calvin Booth picked Jalen Pickett out of Penn State, a 5th-year senior, 6'2.5", I guess, power guard who averaged 18, 7, and 7 on 51, 38, 76 shooting last season. My first impression is that even though Strawther probably has more physical tools to be a rotational player in the NBA long term, maybe Pickett is more NBA ready today. Am I oversimplifying things, CT?
Sorry about the guys. I was on mute. Yeah, Pickett for me, I think, is a guy who's really experienced. He's been for 5 years, in college, so I think it's a pretty decent amount of games under his belt. He started at Siena, which was in a lower conference, and he rose his way up to Penn State in the Big Ten. And he's been a pretty consistent shooter, albeit on a lower volume, but he's a guy who really contributes in a lot of ways. Really good rebounder for a guard, can play make. And he's got like an old school game. I don't know if you guys were around to watch Andre Miller back in the day, but he was kind of a guy.
I love that comp, by the way.
Yep, a really nice comp, I think. For a lot of people threw that out there. I really agree with that. Miller was kind of a guy who was really methodical about the game. Picked his spots here and there, and kind of was a guy who really wanted to outsmart. I think Pickett's the same way. And I think he's a good addition to what the Nuggets need. They need a point guard, whether that's with the bench or it could be like a third string guy. So I think that'll be a really good addition. And Calvin Booth went to Penn State too, so I see the vision there from what he was going for.
Ray, you remember Andre Miller's days in Denver? Is this exciting?
I loved his playoff games versus the Lakers were like huge in my mind, especially as a guy who, I think they might be similar in this way. People didn't think of Andre Miller as a shooter, but in that series, the Lakers really challenged him to knock down threes, and he stepped up pretty consistently throughout that series. So Andre's definitely one of my favorite players, and especially as a guy who is maybe not the most elite athlete, his strength, I think, is going to be something that's going to allow him to be unpressable in a way that I think is just going to give the bench a lot of stability. If he is out there, I think they're going to be very stable under his leadership and guidance.
Steve?
I don't have too many thoughts on him. I haven't watched enough of him to really have any opinion yet.
One comp I really liked from Kevin O'Connor is that Pickett is a mini Jokic, like a Jokic in a guard body, and that's, I mean, how can you not chuckle on that? It just made my day. And really, those stats he's been putting throughout those 5 college seasons. I mean, he's the guy with like most minutes out of all NCAA players in the last 5 years. I mean, it kind of reminds me about Howard when he came to the Nuggets a couple of seasons ago, because he was like the guy with most threes or most points in the NCAA. But we are now talking about the guy with a much bigger frame and hopefully with a much bigger chance of becoming an actual NBA player. I'm really high on this guy based on so few minutes that I've dedicated to his game. But is there a way for him to become the second point guard on the team, or do you think the Nuggets definitely need to bring in a veteran in front of him? Let's start with Ray.
Yeah, I think he's got a relatively good chance. I think when I consider what the needs are, they have a lot of the 2 through 4 sort of spots locked down. But I think there is some opportunity at point guard and maybe even at center, looking for that maybe like true center backup if they want to find that. Where I think if Pickett, it seems like a wide open competition, and I think he's the kind of guy that Michael Malone would trust. Just watch, even going back to like the Jameer Nelson days. I think that Malone loves, former point guard, loves that reliability, that stability, that
he never loses the
that
ball.
guy you can just no, exactly. He has so much. That's what I really love about him. He's very strong in the sense that he's not a guy you can hurry. Teams can apply pressure and as to the extent that they want to, but I think that he'll be able to overcome that and really let teams do that to their own detriment.
CT?
Yeah, I think the Nuggets are going to need more experienced veteran at that backup spot, if Bruce leaves. I actually tweeted today some guys that I think would make sense. Dennis Schroeder, Dennis Smith maybe, or Dylan Wright in a trade. But I think Pickett as a third string or maybe like on a two-way, I think would make a lot of sense. Then doing what Watson did last year, right? Getting him into the G League, getting him that seasoning experience. And then by the end of the year, maybe then he's ready to go as far as, giving him some minutes in the pros. So I think that's, that could be a chance. But I do think, seeing Bruce's importance last year as the sixth man and even finishing some finals games as well, I think the Nuggets are going to need more of a veteran guy because I think playing too many of the younger guys, like Brown, and then we'll see if Watson's in there as well. I think having too many younger guys can cause a little bit of a, maybe like a volatile bench. So we'll see with that. But I think Pickett's going to be someone who's going to contend for minutes, maybe down the line for sure.
I kind of hope he doesn't go to the G League right away because he's been playing so much basketball already. I don't feel like he needs more reps. Just let him try for 10 minutes a game for the first 5 games, and if it's a total disaster, then pivot from that. It's just I don't know. I don't remember being this high on a pick like since Michael Porter probably, and that's probably insane for me to say, but it's just the feeling that I have with Pickett. Steve, are you excited at all about a proposition of having a mini Jokic on the second team?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I do like it, but I also would like to see him go to the G League for a little bit. I'm opposite of you, just because the gold coach is Andre Miller, so it'd be nice for a guy like that who kind of models his game after him a little bit to go actually talk to him and get coached by him and see what he needs to take the steps to make it to the next level.
By the way, shout out Andre Miller. He was by far the best player on the U.S. national team in 2002 when George Karl was the coach. Yes, Yugoslavia won against them in the quarterfinals, but Andre Miller I was scared as hell every time he held the ball. And he was shooting amazingly in that match as well. So kudos to him. And I guess what we see, those 38% last season from Pickett, who knows? It might translate to the NBA level as well. Okay, the last pick from 2 nights ago, it was
Can
Hunter
I actually
Tyson.
add like one thing?
Yeah, sorry. Of course.
I feel like one thing I think would really help him, if we could find like a veteran backup center who knows what they're doing, who is comfortable, it's a guy we can pair him with. I think that would be huge. Not that he can't operate without one, but I think that would be huge for his ability to kind of make that transition easier. I think a lot about how like Monte came into the league, kind of working with Mason Plumlee, and not necessarily that they have to be the best player in the world, but I think that trust, that knowing where they're going to be and how to operate together, I think just makes everything simpler.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like season 9, Malone will finally start using backup 5 properly.
Maybe we'll see. That's a TBD as well.
I'm kidding. Malone has been growing as a coach every year in the NBA, so who knows? He might surprise us with some new tricks this season. Okay, if we're happy with what we said about Jalen Pickett, let's go to Hunter Tyson. First of all, elite name. We don't have to discuss that. He's a 6'8", and the Nuggets think of him as a small forward, which is pretty exciting because if he was a power forward, I wouldn't know what they were doing with that pick. I mean, we have so many power forwards already. But if he can play a small forward at 6'8", and he is a guy that was playing for Monroe, North Carolina, he is also a fifth-year senior who averaged 15 and almost 10 last season on 40% from the arc on 6 attempts per game, which is insanity in NCAA basketball. That's almost twice the attempts of the Nuggets legend Tyler Lydon. So please stop with the comps. Tyler wasn't such a brave shooter, let's call it like that. So, City, have you, in your wildest dream, considered Tyson to be on the Nuggets pick under Calvin Booth?
I did not actually. I had a bunch of other players in that range that I thought the Nuggets were going to take, just based on past history of the last draft that Calvin did. Listen, I think it's a decent swing. And like you said with the Leiden comparison, I think the comp is definitely different, just because Leiden wasn't really a physical player. Watching Tyson, he's a guy who gets those post duck-ins like Gordon does a lot, where he's pretty physical against smaller defenders. He can bully guys like that, and he's a good shooter too, 40% from beyond the arc. He's got height, he's got length, he's pretty athletic as well. So I think, he's kind of versatile in that aspect. But as a second round guy, I don't think you could really do any worse than that. So I think it's a good swing to take.
Steve, do you have any impressions of Hunter Tyson?
I don't have too many impressions, but I will say that I'm kind of glad that Booth went to the offensive side more this year in the draft. Like, I think that's really what we're going to need for the bench anyways, just because I think the defense of the bench was fine. So, yeah, 40% from three, like that'll be, if he does get minutes, I don't know how many he'll get, but it'll be nice to have him out there that can stretch the floor and give the guys some room to operate.
Ray, based on the film you already had a chance to watch of Tyson, what's the reason he takes that many shots from the three? Is he like wide open, or is it like, was it the team effort to provide him with so many attempts?
I think he just is an excellent, like he just knows how to find shots, if that makes sense, in the flow of an offense. And I think that's going to be helpful if he ever touches the floor with a Nikola Jokic. I think they're going to be best friends in that way. That he's going to know where to be. He's going to get to the spots efficiently and quickly and be like, okay, I know I need to be on this wing, in this corner, in this short corner, whatever it might be. I don't know if he's going to see the floor. That's like an open question, of course, but I do think what is nice about it is that it's a lot of options that Michael Malone has, a bunch of different guys, some of them who are more defensive minded, some of them are more offensive minded, and there's not nearly as much, at least what I'm projecting, there's not nearly as much redundancy in Denver's prospects at the moment. So I really like that.
So basically, the 3 picks we got this year, all of them they're not 3 and D, they're 3 and R, 3 and rebounding, like 3 great rebounders from their positions.
Boardman gets paid. That's what they say.
Absolutely. I mean, that's if there's one thing we can say that Denver bench was lacking last year, it was rebounding. When you don't have Michael Porter playing with the bench, when you don't have Aaron Gordon playing with the bench, you had problems with Jeff Green and even Zeke Naji and Vlatko with rebounding. Those guys were good in other areas, but if you could distill the 2 main weaknesses of second unit last year as not enough firepower and not enough rebounding. So yeah, I know it sounds super simple to say it like this, but CT, do you think that this was the mind frame Calvin Booth was having when he was picking these guys?
Yeah, for sure, most definitely. Yeah, like we said last year, I think was more of a defensive oriented draft. Christian Brown came in, was a really good defender. We saw that in the playoffs as well. Peyton Watson, too, has a lot of potential on that end, too. We saw that last year. This year, I think the bench just needs more offense, right? We saw, at times it would get a little stagnant. The rebounding wasn't that great as well. So I think adding Strawther as a shooter, where I think probably since Malik Beasley was a guy who the Nuggets had, off their bench, who was a dynamic shooter. And that was the last time the Nuggets bench was really, pretty decently, good offensively, was back then. This bench last year was more defensive oriented. So I think adding a shooter like that in Strawther, you could kind of surround him with good defenders, and say Zeke Naji comes back, you have Christian Brown and maybe a Bruce Brown if he comes back. Like, if you kind of put those guys around each other and complement them with the bench, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I was really high on the Strawther pick, and I think I'm not sure if he's going to play right away, but I do think, like, if you need to, I think these guys could play and not sink the bench, which I think that's the most important aspect of this past draft, in my opinion.
Steve, defense wins championships, but offense is so much more fun to watch. Are you more excited after this draft, or are you like, let's wait and see what these guys are actually going to contribute next season?
No, I am excited. I think it'll be nice to have more offense on the bench, just because I don't want to have to watch Jamal Murray carry the bench all year long. Like, I don't want him to have to do that. That's exhausting for him. I want him fresh for the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm glad we went more offense, and that does excite me. And I think it'll balance well.
I personally would let both Nikola and Jamal not play until New Year's. Like, let them have as much rest as they want. Hopefully, the team can stay, above 500 without those two guys. That's probably not realistic, but especially in Jamal's case, like, let him rest as much as he wants, because we know he's not a regular season guy. We don't need a regular season Jamal. We know what we have in the postseason from him. Ray, is this kind of draft making you more excited about the season?
I'm very like, I don't know if it's the draft or just having the time to make me breathe a little bit and really take in that, okay, we won the championship and that it's really real. And every morning I wake up and the Denver Nuggets are NBA champions. It's great.
But hear me out. If the Nuggets win the summer league with these guys, will it change a bit?
You know what? The crux of the matter is going to be what Michael Malone does. Honestly, they could win the summer league championship, but I need to see him get these guys into the club, and then I'm like, okay, then I know, is Peyton Watson going to be in the Michael Malone circle of trust? I think that once he is, then I'm like, okay, cool. He could be X, he could be Y, he could be Z, he could be a max player. Like I generally believe that about Peyton. But at the same time, it still could be until it actually is. I do like, you guys talking about the rebounding a little bit earlier. As long as they don't have a backup center, like a true backup center, I think that's going to be really important. Like that everybody 1 through 5 is going to be a rebounder. So all of that, it's nice that I trust Calvin Booth like completely and wholeheartedly, and that there's I could turn around, close my eyes, and come back in 6 months, and I feel like Calvin is going to have made all the right moves that he needs to.
Okay, we spoke a bit about this before the show started, so let's give our picks for the Nuggets MVP of the Summer League, just as a fun exercise. I already said it's Pickett. It's obvious from my side. So let's start with Steve. Steve, who do you see as the Nuggets MVP of the Summer League?
I mean, I'd probably go P-Watt. I think that's the easy one, so long as he plays enough games. Yeah, I think I go P-Watt. And I don't know. I'm excited to see Gillespie play too, if he'll play. Like, I think that's something we forget about as he's there.
CT?
I'm gonna go with Strawther. But if Peyton Watson plays all the games, then I think I'll probably agree with Steve. But I just think Strawther's gonna get a lot of opportunities out there to shoot the ball. So let Strawther cook out there, and let's see him fire away from 30 feet.
Ray?
I got to go with Peyton. I mean, it's two things. I think that with his mobility, he's been a guy who he doesn't always convert, but he can get to his spots as easily as anybody I've seen. And I think when you talk about MVP and you talk about that kind of thing, the narrative, I think, is going to be enhanced by the fact that just P-Watt is a highlight reel. Like that, he just has so many different like blocks, dunks. I think that we're going to see, especially in G League, where play gets a little bit more sloppy. I think we're going to see, some fun times from P-Watt. And he's so big, I'm excited.
Excellent. We have 3 different guys, so some of us will probably be right, and that makes me happy. And can't wait for the Summer League to start. Okay, it is time for our second break. We'll start building the new Nuggets depth chart on the other side, so don't go away. Okay, we are back. It's presentation time. So we have the Nuggets depth chart in Comic Sans. We haven't used that font in a while on this show, so we're bringing it back. we'll do a pretty simple stuff. We have starters, we have bench, third stringers, and depth, or maybe we don't have depth. We'll see. So let's start the easiest part first. The 5 starters. I'm not debating this. Nobody's debating this. Jamal Murray, KCP, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. Those guys are set in stone. Even if Bruce Brown's come back, I don't think he would, overtake KCP or something like that in the starting 5. So, bench. I'm going to start with my guy, of course, Pickett. So, the reason he is in the parentheses is because he is not actually signed yet. We don't know. He'll probably get at least a 2-way contract. I'm kind of leaning he might get a regular contract right away, but we'll see about that. So I put him on the bench at the 1. At the 2, I put, of course, Christian Brown. There's no debating that as well. At the 3, I mean, there might be debating. We'll talk about it in a minute. At the 3, hopefully P. Watt. That would be the maybe the brightest timeline if we get P. Watt from the jump as a bench 3. At the 4, Vlatko Čančar, because if not now, when? I mean, this is probably the last chance we get. For me, because I love Vlatko so much, either play him 18 minutes a game or just trade him, because it doesn't make any sense to make him a third stringer for the 6th season in a row. And at the bench 5, I put here Zeke Nnaji. Of course, he's not really a 5, but who else does have a real 5? The backup 5, so I think that's fine. For the third stringers, I put the 3 guys all in the parentheses. So Gillespie at the 1, Strawther at the 2, and White at the 4. Now, I'm going to hear what you think about these guys, because Strawther will probably be one thing that we'll debate here, because he is the highest pick of the Nuggets this season, and I put him in the third stringers. That might not be the way the Nuggets want to deal with it. And the last guy we have now, also not yet signed, is Hunter Tyson. I put him at the 3, because if I put him in the 4, he would have to go all the way to the depth, and I don't want to do that yet. So these are 14 guys. 4 more guys we can get. Hopefully Bruce Brown, one of them, and then we'll see if some of the veterans will come back, or any other veterans would come through trade or free agency. So let's start with CT. What are your thoughts about this bench lineup? Would you maybe put Gillespie above Pickett or Strawther, in front of Watson or something like that?
Yeah, no, I think the bench is, something I agree with. I just think the point guard spot, whether that's Bruce that comes back, or if they get, like you said before, like a Dylan Wright or like a Dennis Schroeder, or another point guard, in that aspect. I think they just need like a veteran 6-man who can play between, Murray and KCP at times as well. Kind of filling as like a defensive guy too in that aspect. So but I wouldn't be surprised if Pickett gets that, third string job, or Gillespie too, just because, Ish Smith was, he was a good veteran, but as far as like their play, I think it would kind of be synonymous as far as like impact on the court on that aspect. But as far as Vlatko and Zeke, I've been really high on them as the bench front court for a while, especially last year. And I actually think that was the start of really finding that identity of the bench unit, because Vlatko and Zeke were 2 guys who were really switchable defensively. In the front court, they could switch on most players off the bench. So I think that was pretty pivotal going into the playoffs, seeing Aaron Gordon and Jeff Green and Christian Brown do the same thing. So like you said, Miroslav, I'm a really big Vlatko advocate, and I think he should. I think he deserves to play next year. He should be given that runway to kind of get that opportunity off the bench.
Steve, apart from Bruce Brown, which veteran would you like to see back the most?
Oh man, which veteran? I guess I just go Jeff, because I think he's the most playable. DJ's obviously DJ. Love him, but he's past his prime. And then Ish is just wasn't terribly impactful. He was impactful when he played, but I don't think he's impactful enough over extended periods of time. So I'd probably go bring Jeff back if we're going to bring a veteran back.
I love how we don't think about Reggie Jackson at all. I
He
mean,
didn't
I wasn't
play.
thinking about him. I wasn't thinking about him at all.
It doesn't feel, yeah, it's hard to feel like he's a part of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys came in late too, so I think that was part of the problem too. They didn't really get that long of a runway to make an impact. But yeah, I think obviously as we saw with the championship, they figured out the right guys to play off the bench toward the end. So
a year ago I was mad at Calvin Booth for picking up Peyton Watson as a project. I was like, we need 17 guys and all of them should contribute from day one. This is a championship team. No, you don't need 17 guys to contribute. You can have a couple of guys on the edges that don't really play but are good for the team. This is why I would really, really love DJ to be back. Or if it's not DJ, then Boban. One of those two. I don't mind either of them. I think DJ would be really good, especially because they really don't have a real backup five, and DJ showed that he actually can play for 3-minute stretches in playoffs when needed, when really, really needed. So, Ray, what do you think about this depth chart? Would you shuffle some stuff around from what I put here?
I hate to do this. I hate to do this. I really do. I'm kind of out on Zeke as a 5. I like Zeke as a 4. I think he can play the 4 and maybe even do a little bit of the combo 4-3 things if he can pick up his shot again. But I just haven't loved him as a pick and roll option. Haven't always loved his stoutness on the inside, and that's not like an indictment on him. I think it's just the way the positions have worked out on the team. So I would be really open to another like center hiring, and I'm even a guy who I'm a firm believer in having 3 centers. Honestly, just the way that you actually can kind of be in a position where sometimes you need that third guy or that at least a second guy. So Boban, I think, would be a great option. I mean, I'm happy to let Calvin do the recruitment, but I like DJ. I feel like he can come back. He wouldn't. How would I put this? I do have a fear that if Jeff gets brought back, Michael Malone loves Jeff Green,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here sitting like, oh, I want Blanco to play. I want Peyton to play. I want all these other guys to like get a shot, and I would be curious to see if they could thread that needle of having more veterans involved while especially in the regular season, because we all know we've established, I think, enough that a regular season matters less than we might think. If we can use that opportunity to still have that development while still having those veteran presences in the room. So that's the only change I would make, I think, is maybe bumping Zeke to like backup 4 or finding him a place who will, somewhere where he can play. Because I think he can play. He just needs that opportunity.
I love that takeaway because Zeke Nagy is a pretty expensive guy right now. His contract is around $4 million, and Nuggets are crazy expensive right now. Nikola Jokic's Supermax just kicked in, so they're crazy close to that second apron everybody's talking about and everybody's scared of. But I'm not sure if there should be so much scared of in the first season. That's not really clear to me at this point. But do you guys agree that Zeke Nagy is probably the most probable candidate to be traded away in order to get some kind of upgrade on the roster, CT?
Yeah, I think for me, actually, I think, Ray, you made some great points. I think where I disagree is that I think Zeke going forward is going to be a guy who, he's a bit younger as well. And I think he's proven at different spots that he's reliable. It's just the problem is that his health sometimes is that he can't stay healthy. I think that was the issue this year is that he kind of, toward the end of the year, I thought he had a chance to stay in the playoff rotation, but he just got hurt. But I think him and Vlatko are a really good combination moving forward. And I think you kind of need that younger talent like we saw in the draft, right? We're having a bunch of guys on cheaper contracts for longer years to kind of see if you can fill out the bench. Christian Brown, a Peyton Watson, a Strawther. I think Zeke kind of fits in that mold too. And then Vlaco's on a great contract too. And I think he'll most likely re-up again after next year. But Zeke just being on like a low cost, inexpensive deal where he's pretty much a good contributor. I think you could get him on an extension that won't be, that much money, going against, like Miroslav said, going against the second apron. So I personally would bring him back in that case, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they end up trading him too.
I mean, his salary is like the big chunk you can use in order to get Delon Wright or somebody like that. If you lose Bruce Brown, or even if you don't lose him, you can still have a couple of million, to spare to get one more guy, not to rely only on basically 7 guys with Bruce and with Christian off the bench. I'm not saying that you should not rely on Vlatko, because Vlatko is a complete basketball player. I trust in him a lot, but he did have some injury problems in the past as well. So, you better have more veterans than less. Steve, do you have a dream signing for the Nuggets in this offseason?
I mean, I like Delon Wright a lot. I'd like to get him. Or, well, I guess that's a trade, but yeah, that's kind of who I'd like to see us get.
Ray?
I honestly kind of don't. I'm kind of like, let's just run it back. Come on, guys. Let's just go do the thing. I would still love a center of some kind, but I trust Calvin to make that decision, and he's got it covered so far. One thing I would say, I do also like the Vlatko Zeke combination. Like when those guys have played together, I think they've been really effective and flexible and switchable, where I think neither guy is like purely a perimeter guy or purely an interior guy, but they kind of come together in a way. They form like Voltron. But it's kind of like, I don't mind having more depth too, because, to CT's point, both Vlatko and Zeke have gotten hurt at some points, and you can never have too many guys who are 6'8" to 6'10". So just find me a center, and I'm pretty comfortable. Hopefully Bruce comes back. But if not, I think one of Colin or Pickett can be that guy. And if you have like an Ish Smith who wants to be the third string guy, I think that's fine. I'm comfortable with that.
City, you already mentioned your ideas for replacing Bruce Brown if, God forbid, he wouldn't return to the Nuggets. But is there a big guy, a center, backup center you have in mind for filling out that spot from free agency or trade market?
Yeah, I think not anyone in particular, but I think if they could find like another switchable kind of big like that, like Zeke is, but that's why I'm really high on Zeke, kind of replicating that as well. But yeah, I'm pretty confident just with DeAndre coming back, whether that's in a backup role or someone who could just be like a mentor play when needed.
Okay, I think we are done with this segment. We'll take a short break and come back with some league-wide news.
Oh, fun.
Okay, we are back, and we have the presentation back as well. So, league news in Comic Sans. So, we've seen some moves by desperate teams. Desperate times call for desperate measures. So, let's start with the first time, and that's the Bradley Beal trade to Phoenix. So, Steve, I feel like you have strong takes about the big trio of Brad Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant.
I don't know why they did it. It seems so silly to me. Like Bradley Beal, I mean, he's a fine offensive player, but it's more of what they already are. Like they need more defense. Like especially I just don't think you're going to beat the Nuggets on offense. I just really don't. And I don't think getting another third guy that has that huge contract is going to help your depth at all. And so I don't see that as being a good move for them at all.
My favorite part of that trade is that Brad Beal still has his no trade clause. So they cannot get rid of him. That's beautiful. That's like if they want to pivot from here, they have to trade either Devin or Kevin, one of those Devin Kevin guys. Ray, what are your thoughts?
I mean, 6 second-round picks. Yeah, I can't say like you're wrong for doing that. At the same time, it increases their cumulative level of talent, right? If Denver is going to play against the Suns in a series, they do have to defend all 4 of those guys in a way that maybe they didn't totally have to before. But they've got some work. They've got the work cut out for them, I think, in this free agency with just like filling out a roster that can defend and do all the little things that they need to get done. I mean, I respect them as a team that's going to be in that conversation, I think, throughout the year. And I don't think it could Hindenburg, like crash and burn. It could be rough, but I think it could go well. I don't want to write them off yet. I think especially with some continuity for Kevin Durant and maybe do they want to move on from DeAndre Ayton? I don't know, but
They're gonna try.
they've still got
They are gonna
yeah,
try
they've got
hard.
options. They're going to try. And maybe that's the path that they take to kind of helping to fill out those sort of smaller roles. But we'll see what happens.
My first thought actually on this trade is that they might be a really good regular season team with all that firepower. But on the other hand, they might just, suck in every game Kevin Durant doesn't play because he's injured, like what we saw on the Brooklyn in the last couple of seasons of his tenure over there. CT, do you think that Phoenix Suns are the biggest favorite outside of the Nuggets in the West, at least seed wise, not in the playoffs?
Yeah, for sure. I think seed wise, they'll probably be the number 2 seed. Depending on what Denver does with the rest, maybe we'll see Jokic and Murray take more games off. But yeah, I think Phoenix has a lot of firepower in the regular season. Guys who their playoff kind of deficiencies won't come out in the regular season because teams don't really gear up for that. But yeah, I would think the Suns are pretty top heavy, so I would kind of expect them to have a good regular season. But yeah, for the playoff time though, I think it's kind of the same thing that we saw last year. Like they didn't really need another offensive weapon. They kind of needed more defenders because Murray and Jokic were able to have their way in that series. So maybe if they trade Ayton, they could find some more depth and defensive pieces because at this point they might as well put me and Ray out there on their bench.
Hey,
so
I'm available. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I'll be a Nuggets fan. I'll still be a fan, but like I have student loans. So yeah.
You are available outside of the bowling season, of course.
Of course.
Okay, then we get to the second very exciting trade, and that's CP3. This is actually the extension of the first trade. CP3 didn't stay in Washington for a long time, and now he's in Golden State. Now, Steve, is there anything smarter than to unite guys that really hate each other?
I mean, yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine. I'm sure Chris Paul and Steph will get along fine. But I don't see how that helps Golden State. I mean, I guess Jordan Poole wasn't helping much either, but I don't see how CP3 is an upgrade over that other than you're out of his contract quicker.
Right. Do you see CP3 as a full-time bench guy on Golden State, or do you think they are gonna try to combine his ball dominant offense with the movement offense of Golden State?
I really don't know what's going on in Steve Kerr's mind right now. Like,
poor guy.
Yeah, he's got a lot of things to work on, but I think a backup role for Chris would be good for him and his longevity. So I think that, especially in the regular season, that's what I would bet on. But at the same time, they've also shown to be a team that cares a lot more about how they close games than how they start them. So that might be something that they play with, where they try to find some type of revitalization of the old folks' death lineup. I'm curious. Like that's one of those teams that I'm just super curious about. I don't feel threatened by, but how is this going to play out? I think it's going to be really interesting. It's
City,
the first year of Chris Paul. The first year is always like
Yeah, the good one. The good one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually don't think that the basketball fit is that bad. I mean, when you have great players, they'll figure it out. But the health wise, this feels like, I mean, Golden State was not healthy last year either, and now they're adding Chris Paul in his 28th season in the NBA. And the worst thing about it, his contract is still 30 million for this season, and he's going to be a free agent next season because nobody's going to pick up that team option for next season. But they might be really dangerous next season when he's playing for a minimum contract, at his age 47. But before that, City, outside of health concerns, do you see Golden State as the serious top 3 contender in the West?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State's in that 3 spot. I think them and the Lakers with a full offseason to get right like they did last year. I think they'll be a top 3 seed, maybe a 3 or 4 seed. But I'm pretty interested to see how Paul kind of fits in with the Warriors. You kind of play Steph more off the ball now, right? And I think Chris Paul is a better defender than Jordan Poole. That Jordan Poole contract was probably arguably him and Bradley Beal were 2 of the worst contracts in the league. So getting off that deal, and then obviously there was the chemistry concerns with Draymond after the whole incident. So I think Chris Paul kind of is more of like the veteran now in the room, and you could play him off the bench. And I think the Warriors bench won't really crumble when Chris Paul is out there as well. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. But I think they have an interesting team, and health provided, I think they could be pretty good. But combined with Chris Paul, we saw in the playoffs last year against the Nuggets. I mean, he always gets injured in the playoffs. So maybe we'll have to load manage him, throughout the regular season to get him healthy for the playoffs. But if they're relying on him for heavy minutes, I don't see that really ending up, to be that well for them.
Yeah, I'm kind of low on their regular season seed because they were the 6th seed last season, and I don't think they'll be much better in the regular season. First of all, they don't need to be much better. They know how to play playoff games. They're confident in their own, quality. And on the other hand, you have these young teams with a lot of firepower and, more importantly, with much more energy to play the 82 game season. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sacramento was above them. I mean, we're waiting for that New Orleans team to become good at some point, and they're always good up to a certain point in the season, and then they just have a crash landing. Maybe Oklahoma, I don't know. Somebody might surprise and push Golden State back to the 6th seed this season as well. Next move, Zinger in Boston. So, this is the guy that's as good as Nikola Jokic, at least, probably better, as we've heard for a couple of years before, he got his first big injury and stuff like that. So, Ray, do you think that Zinger is what Boston needed to finally get, to the championship?
That's a tough question. I mean, no. I think he makes them better. They're a more well-rounded team, especially thinking about Al Horford, one of the great bigs of the last couple of decades. At the same time, I think he was more of a detriment than they might have realized initially. So I think KP's an upgrade for them. At the same time, I don't know if moving on from Marcus Smart is going to be he provided so much for them defensively. And it really feels like they're trying to put Jason Tatum in a lot more of a point forward role. And I have a lot of questions about that being viable, especially down the line. Maybe it's a position of growth that he can kind of step into, but I'm hesitant that they lack that sort of responsible steward of the ball, I guess is what I would say.
They have Derek White over there to replace Marcus Smart in the starting lineup, and we remember from 4 years ago how good Derek White can be in playoffs, and he was actually one of the better Boston players in these playoffs. Steve, do you think that Zinger's huge appearance in the middle of the paint will improve Boston defense, or is it just a guy that can be hunted in the pick and rolls, like spamming the pick and roll, like they did with Jokic?
I don't know. I don't know how much he helps their defense. I mean, he's probably more mobile than Al Horford at this point in his career, so that'll probably help. Yeah, I think losing Marcus Smart's going to hurt them more than having Porzingis helps them on that end.
CT?
Yeah, I think Porzingis is a pretty interesting addition just because they can play 5 out now. So, Horford can shoot the ball, same with Porzingis. So I actually think for the Nuggets, that'll be, if they meet in the finals, I think that'd be a pretty interesting kind of dynamic, even though I think, Jokic against Horford or Porzingis is pretty easy as far as his offensive matchup. But getting Jokic to kind of play more on perimeter on defense, I think would be a little bit where the Nuggets kind of struggle in that way. But I think still the Nuggets would still win. But yeah, I think Marcus Smart was the heart and soul of that team. So I'm kind of interested to see from a chemistry standpoint how that kind of unfolds, because he's been there for like 9 years in his career. He was pretty big for Tatum and Brown as a veteran. So, we'll see how that ends up now. And then a lot of responsibility on Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon too as point guards. And Brogdon wasn't really healthy, last year. I think actually he was going to get traded to the Clippers too, like a couple weeks ago, and then the physical kind of scared them off. So we'll see what happens with that as well.
Okay, we're going to just sprint through these last ones I have. So Marcus Smart in Memphis, I don't know. Is their offense going to become more clunky than what it was, Ray?
It's just additional sandpaper. Like, this is a very gritty situation. I don't know. It's different. Sometimes new personalities, maybe even I think the leadership might be more impactful than just the on court. And of course, Marcus Smart, great defender, been a point guard in the league for a long time at a high level. But I think that team, in particular, might just appreciate the locker room presence.
He's a great replacement for what's the guy's name that is going to definitely leave. Oh Jesus. Dylan Brooks. So he's a great replacement because they both shoot like 33% from the three on pretty high volume. So I guess their offense won't skip a beat. Steve, does Marcus Smart make you more scared of Memphis?
No. I mean, I like it for them just because the veteran leadership. Like, I think that'll help a lot. I think that's a team that really needs it. But no, I still have issues with their half court offense. It's what I've been saying for like the past year now. And that Memphis, until they get that half court offense to not look so clunky, I think they're destined to be like first, second round exits.
City, they might run even more with Smart on the team now. Because if the defense is even more stout than what it was last season, they might just not need the half-court offense. But what about the playoffs? There has to be some kind of concern about the playoffs.
Definitely, for sure. I think it doesn't really help Memphis' problem with not having any wings. Brooks was like an undersized kind of wing as well. And he's a good defender, but he's more of a good guard defender more than, a wing. So I think they're actually trying to get Mikal Bridges, I saw, but they kind of got rejected with that offer. So I'm interested to see maybe if they could get somebody else to kind of fill in on the wings, because they're very undersized on the perimeter. Seeing next year if they play Desmond Bane and Smart on the wings, that's, I think MPJ and Aaron Gordon are going to feast if that's the case. So I still think they have a lot of stuff to kind of navigate as well. And then John's going to be out for 20 plus games to start. So they might be in a hole early.
Yes, they might really need Marcus Smart for the beginning of the season. I agree with that take. Jordan Poole in Washington, I love this one. Like 35 shots a game on 38% from the field. Who wouldn't like that? I mean, he could be the perfect tank commander for the Wizards. What do you think, Steve?
Get Monte out of there, man. That's all I think. Get Monte to a contender, please. He doesn't deserve this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll be fine as a tank. I think that's what he will be for them, as a tank commander. essentially, Jordan Poole. Yeah, it's a big contract. Jesus. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but
I
the
just
only
want to see Monte get out of Washington. That's all I
I
care
think
about.
that's like their only contract that spans for more than this season, this upcoming season. Everybody else is just an expiring contract, so they're probably looking to team up Pool with some super free agents next season if they want to join the pool party. Let's go. And this is actually the saddest one of them all. The Dallas salary dump. They moved from pick number 10 to pick 12 just to dump Davis Bertans. But the sad thing about is now they will have room for the full Emily, and they might offer it to Bruce Brown. So this might not be as fun as what I thought of when I was making this presentation. Do we have? Let's finish on a high note. Why is Bruce Brown coming back? Who wants to start?
You want to go, Ray?
I want what's best for Bruce. I'm going to be honest. And if that means he, is going to be in Dallas, that's okay. I support you. You're my friend. I love you. You go have a good time. That said, I'm not really afraid of Dallas until LeBron goes there. I think they just need a little bit more than what they've had so far. I mean, I like Bruce as an addition, but I think even that it'll be interesting to see just who has the ball and how they navigate those things.
Steve, you've been at the parade. What
Yes.
was your immediate reaction after he asked one more year?
I mean, I was drinking, so I was very excited about that. Like I was,
The
yeah,
cheers
yeah,
were
yeah.
strong.
But he was drinking too, so who knows what really gonna happen. I mean, I hope he comes back, but I mean, ultimately, like Ray said, I want what's best for him. He got us a chip, and that's what we wanted. So, good luck to him with whatever he chooses.
City, give us a pragmatic reason for Bruce Brown to come back.
Yeah, I think for Bruce coming back, I think the Nuggets optimized his role. He was more, proved that he was, I wouldn't say like a pure point guard, but he proved that he had guard skills, especially playing with Jokic. So I think it kind of showcased Bruce's, the best parts of his game. He could kind of play make a little bit, get to the rim, and make decisions. So I think this was like the ideal spot, for him. I think Malone really put him in a great position to succeed. So I think that's kind of the reasoning for why he'd come back. And I think too, you could, opt into his deal, or not opt into his deal, but come back, get kind of that same money that he made from last year, and then re-up for more money the next 2 years, like Bobby Portis did for the Bucks. So I think that'd be kind of the appeal there. Unless he just kind of wants, that heftier deal now, which I wouldn't blame him, just in case, you never know what happens, with injuries and things like that. So I wouldn't blame him for that. But yeah, hopefully he comes back. The Nuggets need him for next year if they want to repeat for sure.
Yes, I agree. Bruce Brown is the key. If he's back, I have no fear out of all of those 29 silly teams trying to compete.
I will say though,
Yeah,
I do have one thing to say. He may not go to Dallas because he's been in the locker room with Kyrie before.
That's
So
true.
maybe that would be enough.
A lot of the non-financial reasons, really, like basketball, the locker room, the relationships. I think he might like Dallas as a city. I could see that. I could see him feeling welcome by ownership and things like that. But we'll see. I'm open. You come home, open arms here.
Bruce, you're going to be a legend in Denver, whatever you choose to do in the upcoming days. Just please do what we want to so you can be even a bigger legend. It's just that, like, be a bigger legend than Thomas Bryant. Come on, man. Let's have 2 championships.
Oh,
Together.
he's already well.
Oh,
placed,
I agree. I'm joking. I'm joking, of course. So everybody, thank you for staying with us up until the very end of this episode. Be safe. Take care of you and your loved ones. And I hope to see you next week again. Idemo Nuggets.
The more